Hello there. Welcome in. I'm Janelle, and you're on the Janelle Art Channel. So I've been working on this rock painting for some time off and on, as I do, a little bit here and there. And one of the pigments I had used was vintage manganese blue. And it's really, it's a beautiful color. It's very much like turquoise, like maybe Sleeping Beauty turquoise or something along those lines. But it's fairly toxic. So we have other things to make paint out of these days. And most of the manganese blue that's sold in watercolor paints today is manganese blue hue. So, but I really like the kind of clear sky blue of the manganese blue, and I like using vintage pigments, so that's what I used. And as it dried down, I thought, it seems a little dusty. And as I rubbed my finger over it, you can see that it's not bound to the paper. The binder has degraded over time, and so the manganese is flaking off, and that is not ideal. So I'm gonna just work through a bit of a correction. I'm certainly not holding this out as any kind of a way to, you wouldn't do this to a museum piece. You wouldn't do this to a painting that was, something that was a restoration or a conservation effort on a vintage painting. But at least I don't think they would. But while I'm here, in the process of creating it, I am just going to try to brush off. That's what I've been working at. It's just using a hog bristle brush. They're pretty stiff. And just brushing away at that pigment, and then using kind of a low tack washi tape. Again, not conservator level materials by any stretch, but it is picking up that blue pigment. So we're getting it off paper. And then I'm going to bring in a sky blue pigment, or at least that's the name of the paint. And it's a PB15. So that gets us in the realm of the sky blue. And this is new paint with plenty of binder in it. So hopefully that will sequester any of the loose manganese, and hopefully I will have managed to get enough of that flaky pigment off so that the binder in this new fresh paint can soak into the paper. And that's what I'm just going to work away at. So I hope that you're doing well this evening, kind of getting through it. I've just got, we got the third week of December here going. So I'm just trying to keep my head down and get through it. Think about what's out ahead. And I don't wonder that I might need just a touch of yellow in this, because it's a phthalo blue, so it's very artificial. Let's see. We always have to shuffle things around so we can Doesn't matter how much I try to set this ahead of time. Okay, I'm just going to work with the other side here. It lays flat. This flap that comes out has a bit of flex to it, and I find that a bit distracting, so. It's quite turquoisey, so I like that rather, but I want something that's not quite so flat, so maybe some hematite genuine, or some Schmincke Horadam Desert Grey. Yep. Nope. Rearranged everything in the palette, and now I'm at that spot where we're trying to memorize or just have some mental map of where the pigments are so we can just go right in with the paintbrush. But ended up with some Payne's Gray, but there we are. So the Desert Gray is a pretty soft gray, not really strongly tinting. Oh, nice, I like that. I like the brightness of the blue in this. I just wasn't, kind of would look at it, and you know how you'll sometimes look at something in your eye, I'll just catch on it rather than be drawn to it. So there we go. I like the blue quite a lot. It's just a color I like, but it did catch my eye rather than draw my eye, so I knew I didn't want it to be quite as vibrant, but and then let's just put some water in this, work wet in wet, and see if we can get some good effects from the way the pigment will disperse in the water rather than dry brushing it on. That can leave you with a fairly flat area of color. And this is pretty good sized rock, so I don't want it to look too flat. I'd like the paint to do the work. And I also want to make sure that I am wetting as much of that manganese blue up. And hopefully we can get that back into suspension and we can take advantage of the binder from the fresh paint. And get it stuck down to the paper. That's where it should be. But I think this is going to do the trick, and we will be able to salvage the painting, because as it is, a painting that's got pigment flaking off is no good to anybody. Alright, looks pretty dark, but it's going to dry down and lighten up again, so. We're just going to let that paint do its magic, and there, we're quite a few little spots where I had painted in these little bits of turquoise. So considering how much I work with vintage paint, it's a surprise I haven't had this issue before, but it's pretty as media go, it's pretty simple, you know, it's ground up, very finely milled pigment and gum arabic. Doesn't have, you know, plasticizers or optical brighteners or I don't even know if I've got any paints that use octagall. Which is one of the ingredients used to help the paint flow better. And some brands will use some dextrin, the potato starch. Combat Pro F3A. Well, thank you very much for popping up in the chat, and they're saying, just wanted to say, your art looks great, and keep following your dreams. Well, that's very nice of you to say. I'm glad to have you in. We'll see. You know, I have to deduct points for myself when I drop my elbow through the paint, but invariably I end up starting at the lower right instead of the upper left like I should. But we have to get some drama. We have to work something into it here, some way. Will she drag through the paint? Will tonight be the night? Watercolor's pretty forgiving that way. A lot of it, I like the sorts of paints that don't stain highly, because I do come back in and re-wet them and work with them a bit, and I kind of like to be able to re-wet paint and push that pigment around, and by that I mean get an area that's been painted wet until some of the pigment particles float up, and then I can use the brush to move them around, and that's how I can get some of the shadows and the textures in the rocks. So if I do blow through it, I haven't wrecked a painting that way in a long time, so don't worry about it too much. But how you doing out there? Kind of a tricky time of year. I was glad to see solstice on Saturday, and I'm trying to talk myself into getting psyched up, and you know, we had today, Sunday, well, we had a little bit more daylight, and then I guess it was yesterday, kind of running late on Sunday, but we've come into the Monday, so we're tearing those pages off the calendar and making our way to the new year. Hey, Maya. I had used some vintage manganese blue for the turquoise in this painting, and the gum arabic was not I don't think it aged well. The pigment was still beautifully blue, but the binder was just shot, and so the paint's flaking off. So this one's just been, it's probably been here in the studio for about a month as I have just walked past it and given it the stink eye of why did you have to go sideways on me? And I finally decided, you know, just just tackle it, and we'll just fix it. We'll just do our best and see what we can do with it. And so I had to, think about it and try to work through the technical problem of, what's going on here? What happened? What's our likely source of the problem? It could be, sometimes it could be the sizing on the paper is aged. You wouldn't think a piece of paper could have an expiration date, but it can. And also, this paper that I'm working with is a pulp paper. It's acid free, and it's certainly artist grade, but it's not 100% cotton paper, so I think that plays into it too. But I suspect the pigment would have flaked off of cotton as well. So, yeah. Yeah. So as Maya has been kind of putting up with me for the last couple of weeks as I've been tearing my studio apart, because I know I've got a $5 bottle of gum arabic, and I'm loath to go to the art supply store and buy more when I know I've got a bottle here. So I just know it's here somewhere. But the surest way to have the gum arabic turn up is to go buy another bottle. But it's the sort of thing that, like a $5 bottle of it, unless you're making your own paint, that's a lifetime supply. So I'd rather buy another tube of paint and have a new color. But because what my one of my plans was, maybe I can grind up some of that manganese blue and blend it back in with some fresh gum arabic, and that'll work. I didn't toss it, so we may do that yet with it, but and then I just kind of thought, oh well, it is flaking off. I can probably just take advantage of that, and it's not all coming off, so I know there's some stickiness left in it, so we'll just take advantage of what's there, lay in this fresh new paint, and cross our fingers. I guess we'll know after it dries whether or not it's going to stay put or if it's going to flake off again. And if it does, you know the rule. We have a rule up here. It's just a piece of paper. It's not the end of the world. It's just a piece of paper. So I felt like the turquoise was a bit too bright anyway, so this was an opportunity to mix a little yellow in with it, or I actually went with desert gray and just get a do-over. Sometimes we get a do-over. It's not the worst thing to get a do-over. So I'm putting in a fairly big puddle of water here. It's not just a sheen. It's actually domed up. I've got that much water there. I want to, and I'm gently kind of stroking it. Not so much that I'm pilling the paper up, but I am just working it in there. I want to get all of the traces of that vintage paint back into solution, and then coming in with some freshly mixed paint that should be nice and sticky. And that pigment will diffuse out over that little bubble of water. And with any luck, all of the paint will follow the properties of the new paint, and the new paint won't, fall back into the flaky properties of the old paint. Let's take another quick gander here. I think we may have actually hit all the spots. So, got a nice tone to this big one as it's drying down. I'm going to cheat in a little bit of the Desert Grey across there and just give it a bit of a vein, like the matrix in a piece of natural turquoise. Still pretty wet, so that should diffuse out. Now I'll try to leave it alone. Not overwork it. That's always a trick. Craft Zone. Howdy. Hello. How are you, Hannah? It's lovely to see you in this evening. Well, speaking of that Desert Grey, I think I'll mix up a little bit of it, and I've got a few little pebbles in here that look pretty flat. So, what I do with that is just treat the first coat, if it looks pretty flat, like it's underpainting, and then I come back in with maybe one of the super granulating colors or the Daniel Smith Primatech colors that are made from things like genuine hematite. And we just build up layers until it starts to look more like a group of pebbles. Like I just want that sort of effect of looking down on a flat lay of rocks and pebbles. And not just little paint-filled circles. So it does help to have some balance. I mean, we don't want everything to be highly textured. We can have some smooth things, just like if you're walking along the edge of a river and you look down and you'll see usually a pretty good variety of things. Some of them are smooth. I just wanted to not be so busy that your eye doesn't know where to go to look and there's no place for it to rest. But I wanted to suggest rocks. So I just, at this stage of it, just sort of gaze over, and anything that looks like a blob of paint instead of a painting of a pebble, I'll give it a wash of granulating paint. And then I don't really have to do much. I just have to make sure there's enough water in it, and the the paint does the work. Ooh, I'm gonna get blue bleeding into that one. All right. That's okay. Paint will do paint things. Oh yeah, it's really. Oh my. I got a traveler. That's the trouble with phthalo blue versus manganese blue. Um, phthalo blue is a chemical, and you put it in a drop of water, and it will just make a run for the edge of the water droplet. Mineral pigments, when you drop them into water, they'll sort of stay where they are and drop down and start to precipitate in the water. And there's no good or bad about it. It's just a different property for uh, different pigments. So sometimes if you're painting a big wash of area and you want an even coat of paint, something that disperses like that is just exactly the ticket. Okay, yeah, that's better. This Desert Grey is a new one on my palette, so I'm still getting to know it, and it's pretty cool. It looks very unassuming. I mean, it's sort of a yellowish, dusty gray, but as it dries down, the textures are fantastic for this. So, alrighty. So this rock here just looks like a blob. It's too flat. So that's kind of what I'm looking for. This has texture. This has texture. Oh, it's a little bit flat, but I can live with it. But this one just looks too flat. Just give it a little wash there. That'll tone it down a little. Ooh, there it was. Alrighty. Who had 28 minutes? Some nights you just know that's where it's going. Repeat after me. It's just paper. Get right to that edge there. Sorry, I've got to move this around so I can get a better angle and get this corrected before it becomes a painting tragedy. Palette knife, piece of tissue. And I'm down off where you can't see, right? So there's a little flex in this, and I'm just getting the edge right down there. Just takes just a little hint of the blue. It's starting to head over into that other pebble. See, no tragedy. All right, where was I? One of the other tricks that I have for these larger paintings is to work to avoid having too many of the little rocks and pebbles be the same color. Because in nature, if you look at rocks, it seems like every one you pick up is just a little bit different from the other rocks. So one way to achieve that effect is to make slight changes, bring in just a different touch of color to the paint that I'm mixing there on the palette. And that way, I'm not using the same color of paint all the way through. I shift it just a little bit as I go. And that helps to get that variety in the colors. So I know one of the pigments in Desert Grey is, I want to say PY159, something like that, a yellow pigment. So throwing a little bit of blue into it, particularly phthalo blue, that's going to shift us over to the greens, which I get quite a few greens, just balancing against the iron oxide, which is a PR101. Is that right? Yeah, I believe that's right. Iron oxide. Let's double check. We don't want to spread nonsense on the internet, do we? It's enough as it is. Shuffle, shuffle, shuffle. Yes. PR101 is synthetic iron oxide red, so you may find some of your older vintage paints will have PR102. That's natural iron oxide. Mining it and processing it has been a bit hard on the environment, so we're moving to that 101, which is a version that's, where did that even come from? Huge drop of water there. Yeah, so we're moving to ones that are made in a more controlled way, so it's not so destructive. But there are some considerations you wouldn't think about. You know, do I really have to think about the environmental impact when I'm dealing with a simple sort of a media? And do I have to be concerned about whether or not I'm looking for products that are not including animal ingredients? Well, some paints, some brands of paint still use ox gall, which is derived from cattle. In the paints. So, and the paintbrushes traditionally are made out of animal hair. Everything from camel to squirrel to mink. Now, these days, you can find all kinds of synthetic bristles that have pretty good, they have very good durability characteristics. They last a long time. They're nice and springy. If you're used to using brushes that are made with animal hair, you may find it's a bit of an adjustment to because they don't hold water as well. In my experience, I think I struggle with the synthetic brushes, and that I feel like they don't hold water the way that that my other brushes do. So I haven't bought a brush in a long time. I do have lots of vintage brushes that I've taken care of over the years, and they've lasted for years. If you don't leave them down in the water, don't ever let a watercolor brush soak. The bristles are glued in the handle and this metal piece, the ferrule. So if you leave a brush soaking in water, it's going to dissolve that glue and your bristles are going to come loose. And then it's not going to function right. Oh, this one, my eye just keeps coming back to this right here. So I think, yeah, that's where the intuition comes in. That's where the artist's eye comes in. It's like, what looks a little bit not quite finished. Much better. I've got a bit of a line of these guys here that seem a little bit too similar to one another. This is burnt sienna. So I want to warm this up here because we've got a line of what look like cool gray stones, and I want to bring in a little bit of this orange color. But I don't want to just put a bright orange dot here at the edge. Just a little bit of warmth there. Ooh, that's got some kick to it there. Bring it up, bring it back down. There we go. Hey, Marla. Welcome in. How you doing? All right. I am pleased. This turquoise is it's looking pretty good. I'll give you guys a closer look to it. Okay. Okay is good. And a week like this week, okay is just that's we'll take it. Got this one sitting over here just looking like a robin's egg laying on the beach. Gotta work it down a little bit. Take the flatness out of it here. Bring the value down just a little bit. And then I've got another block with another painting on it. I thought I might work on that for a bit, but we also do have a nice stack of pebble drawing blanks. So if anybody is wanting to just watch pebble drawing come together, we can throw one of those in the mix too. Aren't they? Yeah, that's just what I wanted. I wanted it to look like there were just a scattering of maybe some amethysts, and I was really thinking of sodalite and green jasper and jadeite. See how this one was kind of going for the sodalite effect. I mean, don't get me wrong. I love a homely, plain old, just a hunk of rock. Kind of non-discriminatory when it comes to picking up pebbles and taking them home, but I also I like all kinds of rocks, and that turquoise, like Sleeping Beauty turquoise, is one of my favorite colors, and of course it's amethyst is another one that just sort of delights the eye, doesn't it? It's hard to be unhappy when you're looking at a chunk of amethyst. So I worked up some swatches from my Daniel Smith dot card, and one of the paints that they included on here was Amethyst Genuine. It's ground up amethyst made into paint, and I thought I just needed to, surely we've got to include that. We can't not include that for the amethysts, right? So let's do that. Thinking about which brush I want to use. Maybe this guy. The color was spot on for this. I was a little surprised by how absolutely sparkly apparently some of the pigments, when they make them into paint, they are almost glittery. So here's the swatch for it. I'll try to catch that in the light. Can you guys see the glitter effect? It's actually ground up amethyst, but it just looks like a paint that contains glitter. So I'm gonna go kind of easy on it. Not sure, a chunk of polished amethyst doesn't really have that kind of reflectance, but the fuchsite and the bronzite and the kyanite, as well as the amethyst in the Daniel Smith Primatech line, are all very glittery. And I have used the hematite genuine, sodalite genuine, green apatite, and serpentine, and they're very earthy. Very earthy. So I was a little surprised at the glitteriness of that. So I was glad I got a dot card and gave it a try before I just went whole hog on a 15 milliliter tube of this, because it looks more like you ought to use it on a birthday card than you ought to paint a sort of a subdued rock. I'm gonna wet this so that we get some I want this to disperse across the surface and not just hang out like a glittery stripe on it. And I've just taken some water to the card, and there's just a dot of paint on it, and it just brings up a bit of paint. Oh, I rather like that. Like that. If you have a crystal of amethyst, it'll be usually kind of dark on one end, and then the color gradates, and it can sometimes move up to be a yellow citrine at the end of the crystal, or just clear like quartz on the end of the crystal. I'm not going to rinse that. I'm going to try to I don't want to give up any little dot of that paint at all. So we're going kind of gently. I don't want to lift up the pigment and move it around. I just want to dot some of this dark purple into it and give that a little bit of a shape. And I also don't want to turn all of that glittery amethyst loose. Watercolor is generally a fairly flat media. I've noticed the Japanese style watercolor, the Gansai Tambi, they're pretty glossy. Especially if you don't dilute them too much. And when I have mixed them in with my traditional watercolors, they create a different texture that's a little bit off-putting, so. All right. I'm just dotting in this dark purple. It's the same hue, but it's more concentrated, so. Bring this up so you can have a closer look at what's going on with it. Yeah, Maya says she likes the glitter and the amethyst, but she's not sure where to use it. Yeah, I'm painting chunks of amethyst and kind of going lightly, so I don't know. I think I did have an impulse to paint these German bearded irises, because if you look at them closely, there is almost a shimmery iridescence to them, and I think this pigment would work quite well for that. Seems like it dries pretty quickly, but it's very hard to judge based on how the paint comes from. Oh, well, that'll do it. That was plenty. All right. That's better. All right, don't fuss, don't fuss. Just talking my way through it here. I think we could use a few more little crystals of that amethyst. Marla asks, have I ever been to see Flathead Lake, Montana? The only part of Montana I've seen is the area that's very near Yellowstone Park. So I haven't traveled in Montana much at all. I know my mom and dad took a trip from Oregon to South Dakota to go see Mount Rushmore. My dad he wanted to go do that. And they went through Montana, and they stopped somewhere in Montana where there was a sapphire mine. And my mom came back with a group of fairly small sapphires, like maybe a fifth of a carat or so, and I have just spent the last couple of months binge watching Yellowstone. And oh my gosh, it's beautiful country. Reminds me quite a lot of Central and Eastern Oregon is high desert, where we've got BLM land, and people do run cattle on that BLM land for sure, and sort of big open country that's where you've got a view out to mountains. So now I'm curious about Flathead Lake. What's there? Are there good rocks? So I don't want anything just screaming purple, but I just want some just touches of it so that to balance out this kind of large chunk here. And it's drying down. I can start to see the sparkle. I'm not sure about that. I'm not sure. I'm sure I will have a different opinion when I see it in the daylight in a couple of days. It's always, it always helps to take a little bit of time and to step back and to sort of let the picture clear out of your mind. Okay, Marla says the lake is closer to Glacier, over in the Bitterroot Valley. There are pictures of this lake, and the water is very clear. You can see the rocks, and I might want to Google images. It's very colorful. I will do that. I've been up to like Lake Louise, and I've been in the Tetons a bit, and in the Rockies up in Canada, and I do really like those kind of high elevation lakes where the glaciers are just scraping the rocks off the side of the mountains and tumbling them down into lakes, and just lots of wonderful things to look at and sometimes pick up and put in your pocket. I'm trying to think of the name of the other Canadian lake that it was there. It'll come to me about 5 minutes after I stop. Yeah, it's near Lake Louise, and it's that's the trouble when you get to get to be 60 something. Your head is so full of stuff. You've got to move stacks and piles of memories to get to the one you're trying to get to. Moraine Lake. There we go. Moraine. Well, I'm looking for one that's about this size that's not already dedicated to another color, and there's just not one there, so maybe we can go with this little tan one right about here. Yep, that'll do it. I picked up a surprising amount of paint on this brush just off that little paint dot. I was stealing this trick from the marker toolbox. If you want to bleed colors, you can take like a yellow marker and touch it to a hot pink pen, and then as you work, the ink will come out in a very lovely blend. I saw that and I thought, I bet I could do that with watercolor. Okay. oh yeah, Maya is in some absolutely stunning part of the world there. So cross your fingers for me that we've got that turquoise pigment to stick to the paper this time and nothing's going to come flaking off. And I think I've got another one on another block, and I'm going to pull that out and do some finishing up. Boy, I think I'm so close to being done with this one. Yeah, these guys are a bit different than the usual pebble sketches, right? So I'm still using, this one is still, I've got the rocks and pebbles outlined using that pigment marker, so we're still in a mixed media kind of a mode, and it's not strictly watercolor painting, but it's more so than those sketches. All right. So when you've got something on the block, that's the downside of a watercolor paper block. Just show you the edge. All of your paper is all just glued down, so you can only really work one sheet at a time. So if you've got a painting going on the block, you sort of need to stick with it and get it cleared off before you can start something else. So I just deal with that by, you know, having several watercolor paper blocks. This one I'm working in, that one was, I would say, the deep greens and the rust color with the turquoise blue. This one I'm working much more in a red, yellow jasper, just a slightly different colorway. And the main pigment that I use in here, that would turn out pretty good there, huh? This one, I used the Daniel Smith watercolor stick in Hematite Genuine. And then with touches of other color in here. This one's got a bit of quinacridone gold. This one's using a little bit of probably, I'm gonna guess it's either cobalt blue or phthalo blue, but probably like the Windsor blue, which is a phthalo blue, but it's modulated a little bit. And quite a lot of sort of greeny golds. So I think at first glance, if you look at these, you're just gonna go, oh, it's more rocks. When you see them side by side, they do look a fairly different one from the other. Subtle, but different. Marla says Lake Louise is breathtaking. I agree. It's just a jewel. And Canada, just all I've seen of it, just really beautiful. Um, and Marla, thank you. I admire all of you who paint. And I think, yeah, Maya's probably doing stuff there, but she always likes to pipe up and tell people who say that she started to. She wasn't a painter until she got it in her head to. I think she just went, well, I think I'd kind of like to learn to paint. And so she started watching YouTube tutorials about 4 years ago. And she has just worked away at it. And I think is just paints beautifully. So like a lot of things, it's a bit of a matter of setting your mind to it and just lots of practice, being willing to sit down and just work away at it. Not like a punishment. I mean, at our age, right? We don't have to. We don't have to do stuff. We don't. Um, I've here's an example. I was going to say you don't have to do stuff you don't want to, you don't like doing, but that's not true. In life, we have to do a lot of stuff that we don't like doing, and that's just being a grown up. So that's not strictly true that we don't have to do stuff we don't like to do. We do. But when it comes to our hobbies, we don't have to persist with things that are just, yeah, we're not getting enjoyment with. That's the other side of it. Go ahead and start with small bits and practice. And if you are finding that you're working on something that you can get into a flow state where you lose track of time, like anything that you can sort of concentrate on and you lose yourself in it a little bit, it doesn't matter terribly much if you are creating stunning masterpieces, because really you're not going to at first. And even an experienced artist will have quite a few paintings to get one that's just a top-notch painting. It takes years before you're creating 15 out of 20 paintings that are sellers, right? I might paint 20 or 30 paintings and just a handful will be good enough to go to the gallery. I've been out of practice for years. I just came back to it at the I want to say maybe June of 24. So it's difficult to have original work be a lot of it be high quality for any artist. Now, you can learn how to master tricks and gimmicks, in particular, a lot of them in watercolor. So you can certainly paint small things in a very satisfying way. I know you were here, Marla, when we were painting the little trees. And once you kind of figure out that first little way of dropping the brush onto the paper where it makes the top of the tree, and if you can learn to loosen up and just go a little bit wider, you can do an impression of a tree, and you can practice and probably get the hang of that within 10 or 20 little trees on scrap paper. And you can get good enough at that to make yourself some holiday cards. And if you can do that while you are getting yourself into the creative flow state, it's super good for your brain and your well-being. So I just encourage people to, find something and then find a little tutorial and just chip away at it. And if you're having a good time, keep doing it. The story I started and just rambled from 7 minutes ago was I wanted to learn how to crochet. I see people do it, and it seems like they do it so easily, and they'll be, their hands are going and they're making eye contact and talking, and they're not even really, like, they're not looking at what they're doing. I am a knitter, and I knit when I'm in knitting mode. I knit, I think, pretty well. I enjoy it. Feels good in my hands. Satisfying work. Crocheting, oh my gosh, do I struggle. It gets tight, and I'm trying to jam the hook through, and it just can't get the loop pulled back through. And I never get into a flow state. So I just was determined that I was going to learn how to crochet, and I set out making one of those granny square afghans, and I managed to get it done. I managed to kind of persist with it until my hand loosened up enough to be able to make the stitches. But I never really get to the point where it feels like what I want to do. It's very, I don't get into a flow state with it. It's just not ever going to be my jam. And that's okay. Maybe painting is not going to be your jam. That's okay. Maybe drawing or rubber stamping, or here's an accessible way. If you've got rubber stamps, maybe you say, oh, I don't know what to paint. Well, I'm guessing, you can draw a bobbly circle and put some paint in it. That's probably not going to thrill that many people for that long like it does me. That's okay. But rubber stamps, if you stamp them with some permanent ink, then you can use paints, and you can come in and just paint the image. Paint that little rubber stamped image. And you don't even have to think about drawing. You can just play with the color. Mm-hmm. Seems like I'm moving kind of slowly with this one, but this painting is at the stage where it was, the last time I worked on it, I thought, I think it's 95, 99% of the way done. So I knew when I came back to it that there weren't going to be very many little pebbles that needed touching up. Again, I'm just looking for anything that's looking just a little too bright, or a little too much like a flat circle of paint. And if it's just looking too bright, I'm using a mixture of zoisite, genuine from Daniel Smith, and Desert Grey from Schmincke Horadam to create a granulating neutral wash. And my hope is that'll dry down and it'll leave a little bit of texture, so that'll alleviate the flatness. And then the grayness will take down anything that's too... There's a yellow one right here in the middle that just looks too bright to me. And then this painting may well be done. So that'll be good. Get 2 paintings off the blocks, and I'll be able to start some new ones with the new paints. I do have a little stash of new paints here, just waiting. So these bigger paintings are kind of fun because it starts with this exuberant big brush, a lot of water. I splash it on. It doesn't have to be exactly in a circle. And then I go to the palette and I take whatever catches my attention that day and I drop it willy-nilly into the puddle of water. And as I work through it, there's stages where it's kind of painted with a lot of freedom, and then a little bit more control, a little bit more control, and then the final bit is this fussing and looking for the details. And I like all of those things. I really like the fussing and looking for details. You may have noticed that about my style. But I think I've come on a good balance with the big splashy things and then the smaller, fussy, more controlled things. Anyway, did I finish my story about the doing crafts that are just don't suit you? And you'll run across it. There'll be something and you'll think, boy, I really want to learn that. And you might take a class, you might start it, and you might end up like me trying to crochet where everything's just balled up and my hand is tight, my shoulders are all up around my ears, and I'm not having fun. And I mean, I can drive myself through it and end up with a nice warm Afghan that the cat is over on the other side of the room laying on right now. But it wasn't terribly joyful. So if that's what your experience is, there might be something that's just a couple steps over. Like might not be someone who crochets. You might be someone who embroiders or does needlepoint or knits or paints, or maybe you've got fantastic handwriting and you might really do some beautiful lettering if you sit down with a pencil and sketch it out and work at it for a little bit. But anything you can do for just even 5 minutes to half hour or an hour. Maya says watching is fun. I agree. I watch a lot. I watch a lot of artists, so. Yeah, well, thank you for saying that, Marla. Marla says, I learn a lot from your swatches. I do too. And Marla says she's fascinated by all the different art supplies you all have to achieve the different colors and textures, etc. That is, right now for me, absolute play. And I know Maya has seen this. I don't know if I've shared the insanity with all y'all, but I got a new tube of paint, and I like the little ones because then I can buy more colors, but the local art supply store they stock the big ones. Let me show you what I mean. It's a 15 milliliter tube of watercolor. It's monster big. So I said to myself, I want to figure out what it does, how it mixes with all of the other colors I've got in the palette. And I didn't quite get to all of them, but I worked through quite a few to see what happens when I take this sort of basic gray-green and mix it with some of the other pigments. So the characteristic it has is this sort of dark texture that's from the size of the zoisite, which is it's a mineral. Tanzanite, the gemstone, is a zoisite. So if you're familiar with the beautiful blue tanzanite, but this is just the kind of rock form of it. And so I've just worked through to see what happens when I mix it with other things. What sort of, what effects do I get? And in looking at my swatches, it gives me some ideas about, well, maybe that can be some foliage. Maybe it could be landscape texture, foreground, because it's a little bit bright. And then, of course, then we get into my favorite greens. And then I'm just like, I took one look at this and went, oh yeah, I'll paint one of the jade green rocks. Like in the other painting, we had a couple that were in that colorway. So it's really surprising to me what that gray-green does to just some fairly bright pigments. This is phthalo green, and it tempers the color down. It makes it look a little bit more natural, but it's still just sort of gorgeous to look at. And we got into the reds, and I think I've got a whole nother ring of these. But from kind of a couple of evenings of work, now what I've got in my brain is ideas about how these paints can mix and what sorts of effects I can get with them. And it's like I've just got a couple of paintings that are just brewing away. Pardon me, I apparently have a throat full of frogs here. Hopefully that wasn't the paintbrush water. Yeah, so all right, here's the one I'm looking for. So this is the hematite genuine. Just a little swatch of the paint all by itself without any colors mixed into it. So you see these kind of blotchy areas? That's what we've got replicated on a bigger scale going on in here. So it just starts with a little bit of play. Alrighty, I don't know about you guys, but I think I need to do a couple of pebble drawings, sort of gather myself, getting myself all over the place here. Yeah, I like this. What do you guys think of that colorway? It's almost sort of a soft pinky red. Some gold. Very soothing to me. And then, yeah, we'll finish the little bit of the art show. See, those sort of the greens. One of these days, I'm going to be over here doing my thing, and you guys are going to hear a tremendous crash as my stacks go. So far, I've managed to not do any of those while I've been live streaming, but I just know. I'm not going to show you. You'll have to trust me. You have to trust me on the stacks. Yeah. Yeah. Alrighty. Let's see what we've got here. I was working on blanks. We've got a ton of things. Got a ton of things to work from. Oh, there's a good one. Yes. Oh, this one got. Can I possibly get the light to catch that? There it was. There's just a little shimmer of glitter like crazy in this. Did not expect to have glitter from the minerals. And it's not glitter technically. It's just the crystalline nature of the pigment when it's ground up. Oh, good. Good. Okay. Well, we had a bit of a group in here earlier now. It's just the three of us, so I don't know if were you in here earlier, Maya? There was about like 20 people or more in here for a minute, and I had to remember, just keep my wits about me. Okay. Maya says you become good at Tetris when you have a lot of art supplies. I'm gonna reconfigure where my workbench is so that we can, from time to time, have a backdrop and the shelf that is sort of within arm's range of me is extremely Tetrised. And of course, the thing I want is always at the bottom of the pile. Just periodically, I tear everything off of there and restack it in and pull out the media that I'm kind of phasing. I'll pull in stuff like I might go working with rubber stamps and embossing and inks and dye inks, pigment inks, and I'll work like crazy for a few weeks on that, and then I shift over to colored pencils, and then, you know, I'm kind of, as you've seen, in a watercolor phase. But when I'm 2 phases past, I am still stumbling over maybe the rubber stamping materials, so I do try to just take a day now and again, and um, most of my supplies are in tins and totes, so I just grab everything that I'm not working with or haven't worked with in the last 3 weeks, 4 weeks, and just shuffle it off to a different part of the house. So things will kind of rotate back and forth from the my fabric studio closet. And that helps keep stuff at hand without too much clutter, and it keeps things, I don't know, it helps me stay fresh, and I'm more inclined when I have an idea to go, oh yeah, I can reach it, and to just reach over and grab what I need. And then eventually, you know, there'll be a day when I go, oh yeah, now I need to do a little rubber stamping because I need maybe like sentiments for the holiday cards that we were working on. So I can just go and grab that tote and kind of cycle things around. I think even if I had more, my studio space is probably 12 by 25 or 30 feet. I've got a lot of good studio space, and even that, like, if you've got everything out all the time, it's like you're trying to work in an art supply store, but not in a good way. So pull out the stuff you're using and working with, and stow away the stuff that is just not in the rotation right now. Don't keep it underfoot if you've got the space to do it. And if you can tuck everything in a tote, especially like I've got some totes that just slide right under. I can get 6 or 8 of them underneath my bed in the spare room easily, and it does help the creative process just to have the right amount of clutter. Sometimes if you're kind of feeling like you're in a creative slump or kind of a tight spot, or you're just frustrated in your work, a good clear out day in the studio where you move stuff around can really break that up and break you out of it. Well, this last batch of cards, I did a lot of light washes of whatever color was on the palette, and I'm really not sure how I got to this blue, but it is really pleasing. And I can see by the sparkle I've put a wash of the amethyst genuine on it. Too bad I can't be bothered to write notes on the back when I do stuff like that. That would have been nice. I kind of like how this blue turned out. I'm joking, because sometimes I do put notes all over everything, but sometimes you just want to paint. Sometimes you just don't want to be bothered to go find a pen, and especially when the paint's wet, you like gotta write upside down. That doesn't work. it's basically, I think anybody else, so Marla says that's good sized. Uh, Basically, it's the living room and dining area. And I just don't entertain. I, I do have some family there. They don't live near where I live. And so, to my way of thinking, a living room is sort of a 1960s and 70s notion, right? I'm in this house. I'm disabled. I'm home all the time. I'm here. And I'm going to use my space to do my thing. Um, I did kind of keep a traditional house for a very long time, and it took a bit of a sort of a real change of my mindset to be able to do that. But um, I'm trying to think if I've ever missed having a dining room slash living room, and I haven't. But I have loved having a giant studio space to do my thing. So, not everybody can do that. A lot of people, have families or uh, bigger families, more people living in the dwelling, and but if you can, just put that out there that that's an option for you. You don't have to keep rooms of your house devoted to hypothetical future events. You can just turn them into whatever you want for your own needs in the present time. I think I want to go with the 10 millimeter pen on this one. I just want to feeling like something bold because it's a little bit dark. Yeah, and I kept one of my rooms for a guest room for a while, and then I decided I wanted a sewing studio, so the bed went up. It's a sort of a Murphy bed that's not a Murphy bed. If you fold it up against the wall, put a bungee cord around it, then it's a Murphy bed. So, but yeah, I spent a lot of time just like on the corner of the desk or, with the computer shoved off to one side and the file cabinet banging me in the knee to just carve out a few square feet of space to work. You don't have to have a giant studio. You just have to have a creative corner. And, sometimes it's good size, sometimes it's, half of your wingspan. And there's so many good organizers anymore, like even the rolling suitcases that you can pick those up for a song at yard sales or even on sale at it's kind of goofy, but they'll put them on sale in May and June because it's a traditional graduation present. And you can get a bunch of materials into a rolling suitcase. I used to be able to get cutting mats and cutters. My featherweight Singer sewing machine could go in the bottom of the suitcase, and then enough fabric to go for a day's work when I belonged to the Quilting Guild. And you'd see all of these ladies, whatever the Thursday of the month, rolling our rolly suitcases just chock full of just what we needed for the day. So, and then that can just be rolled into underneath the bed into the corner of a closet and come out when you need it. Oh, this one seems to have some really different shapes from what I'm used to working with. I switched out my brushes the other day, and I'm painting with some brushes that have a different shape, and they made it changed up how things ended up here, so probably good for my brain to adjust to that a little bit. Yeah, if you're on Replay Crew, leave me a comment about where you carve out your studio space or your creative space. Because I think it would be helpful to people to, especially if you found kind of a clever spot to do it. I think others might be inspired by what you've engineered for yourself. Oh yeah, thrift stores too. Good. I've picked up several there that are um, just, I don't know whether somebody got a new suitcase or maybe it was luggage that was abandoned somewhere. Because I've picked up a couple of really nice suitcases that don't even ever look like they've been through baggage handling, you know. I used to use the vintage suit. I loved like a 1950s or 60s style, you know, with the handle and the kind of the stripe and the hard corners. I love those kind of suitcases, but as I got a little bit older, I appreciated wheels. So I've got, I still have a couple of just classic kind of mid-century suitcases, but I don't travel around with those anymore. They're kind of stacked up, three of them, you know, large, medium, small, medium, full of my fabric stash at the end of the sofa as a sort of an end table. There's not much in my place that doesn't do at least double duty. I always thought things like coffee tables and end tables, like they don't really work that hard. They just hold a lamp or a cup of coffee or a stack of magazines, and I'm like, why have a coffee table when you can have a trunk? So, I guess actually it's not, I don't know. There are antique trunks. What I use is a blanket chest. So I tend to put my feet up on it anyway, so you know, it's nice and sturdy. I always love the look of that kind of mid-century minimalism kind of thing where there's lots of light and air, but that's funny, isn't it? How we can admire something, but it just could never live in one of those minimalist kind of houses. Hey, pondfish. We're hanging in there. We're doing art and we're hanging out and finding some companionship instead of, you know, just going to bed and pulling the covers over their head like somebody may have done to yesterday for most of the day. I did. I don't know where you guys are at, but that's where I was at on Sunday. I tried to get up and at 'em, and I just took a day. It just seems like the friendly, happy people that are just really enthused about their holiday are out in force. And yay! I I have a lot of memories of times like that. I love that for them. I hope that they are going to have wonderful celebrations and make lots of memories and have great times. Kind of not where I'm at this year. But, like anything in life, you just hang in there and the days pass and new days come, and I know I'm not the only one who's going, God, this isn't the happiest time of year for me. And I've been just kind of, I feel like I've been biting it back and just like I don't want to make anybody else sad, right? I'm just kind of keeping it to myself, but that's okay. It's okay to be mindful that other people should have some room to have their happy. But if you're not feeling super happy, that's also okay. And I suspect that by speaking out about it just a little bit, not to bring anybody down, but just to say, it's not great. I've got a plan brewing. I'm planning to be live streaming at intervals throughout the day on Wednesday. And Maya's going to join me. We're going to be able to do some side-by-side goofing off. We always get to laughing and have a good time when we do that. So we do have a plan for Wednesday. And there's tons of people who are going to be live streaming. So I know I'm not just going to like spend Wednesday eating ramen and sucking my thumb and feeling sorry for myself, right? So we do have a little plan. So if you're out there and you're alone and you're, come and join us, come hang out and just either watch or talk in the chat or, just know that that's going to be going on. And, if you have a chance to hang out and have a warm day with some people you care about, that's cool too. That's very cool. Oh, it's time for the singing cat portion of the show. Hi, buddy. Are you going to lie to people on the internet and tell them I didn't feed you 5 times today? Uh-huh. Murr, she said. Anyway, let me take a look and see what we got going on here in the chat. Well, there's somebody new. Cade, welcome in. Do I like ramen? I actually like those cup of noodles things, but I do, I add tons of stuff to them. Like, they never taste quite right, so I'm always adding hot sauce and some spices, and then, what else do I throw in? There's some frozen peas, and I like that they're fast, right? I like that I can get up and just toss them in the microwave and get back to usually this, something along these lines. It's really it's very raw. The packaged ramen, it's so salty. My cardiologist is like, you gotta stop eating that stuff. I'm like, okay, well, find me a substitute that I don't have to stand and stand and cook. But oh, Cade says they finally returned after a very long time. Oh, Pondfish says I stay home every year. Well, me too. You know, it's the day itself. I almost always find something to do. It's not like I usually just spend the entire day going, you know, thinking about, you know, the people in my family who are okay. I'll just say it. I do spend a lot of the time. Like my mom passed away. My mom was the person who did the feast and did the big holiday. And after my mom died, none of the rest of us can get our shit together to do a holiday. That's just what it gets down to. And you know, I'm not the only one who's in that situation. I think there's people, probably a lot of people who have that. Might have been their grandma, might have been an aunt, and it just kind of is what it is today. I can't do much about it. I've tried hosting holidays, and um, my dad, when he was still of sound mind, would um, just kind of make a pain in the ass of himself, and we just had that floral business, right? So all of our holidays were spent grinding it out, and like you'd be at the like if if we were still running the flower shop, I wouldn't be here. I would on this day, I would be all night at the flower shop getting centerpieces and wreaths and stuff, still working on orders for customers. Tons of people send flowers for the holidays. So in some ways, like our holidays were always a bit of a nightmare because we were working really hard to help other people, you know, make the holidays of their dreams. And then we would go home and just bust our asses trying to put our holidays together. So I think some of the sadness I have is just over like this idealized holiday that I always wish we'd had. And my mom had 3 years after we sold the shop. She had a stroke and we sold the shop. And 3 years later, she passed. So the time that she had where she didn't have to work herself, you know, into exhaustion in the flower shop, we were trying to overcome health issues. So I know part of my sadness is just this idea of, you know, I wish that she had had time where she was retired and physically capable. So I find that the days, especially like from the 20th to the 24th, like those days are really the hardest. The 25th is usually not too bad because the day comes and often there's sunshine or maybe a, you know, a last minute invitation or something pops up or I find a movie to watch or like it's okay that day. But the kind of leading up to it, there's a lot of thinking and memories and stuff that's a lot of bit um, yeah, it's kind of challenging. But we're gonna get through the, you know, we get through the Christmas day. It'll be whatever it is. Hopefully, it won't be too negatively impactful. And then we'll have some uh, late December days, some January days. Definitely, we'll be getting more daylight hours each day. So the trick is just getting through this week, eh? But yeah, if you're out there and you're in it and you're just like, oh, I'm up to my ass in present wrapping and I've got all these people coming and yeah, it's tough. Try to catch what is happy when you can, and hang on to it. Because if you live long enough, you will come to different kinds of days. Some years, not all years are going to be full of hustle and bustle and joy and the smell of pies baking, and that's just life. But now we've got the community that we make in these strange little corners of the internet. And oh, Marla Diller said, I wish we had a Waffle House in Wichita. You get a meal and a show. You certainly do. We don't have a Waffle House. I'm out in Oregon. We don't have a Waffle House, but we've got IHOP, International House of Pancakes, or so I almost want to go there on Wednesday just for the show, because there's going to be one. But in places where there is a Jewish population, it is a bit of a tradition to go and get Chinese food on December 25th. So there is a small Jewish population where I live, but not enough to get the Chinese restaurants to be open on Christmas Day. So I keep hearing people talk about getting Chinese food, and it just sounds like it. I haven't had good Chinese food in a while. That sounds like a delicious idea, doesn't it? All right, I guess I could step down one pen size and fill in even more of these little little tiny holes. Yeah. Well, here's our red and green thinking about Christmas drawing. Okay, Maya. So let me translate that. So Waffle House is a 24-hour kind of an operation, and it's I think they're correct me if I'm wrong, Marlo. Aren't they mostly in the South? And they're known for being open 24 hours and for all kinds of people to come in, and they bring their show with them. So there'll be people fighting, people just carrying on in all sorts of ways. And I think one of the things that I hear about Waffle House is like it's the last thing to close. If a hurricane or there's a tornado watch, it's like people in communities will say, well, if the Waffle House is still open, it can't be too bad. But when the Waffle House closes, everybody heads for the cellars. They all evacuate because it's sort of the, yeah. I mean, the autistic averse, it's too peoply out there. Part of me is like, oh, hell no. Just, yeah, can't get out of the car and go inside there. But the other half of me that loves that kind of chaos and spectacle would just go, yeah, and bring me a beer. Pondfish says they have great bacon. So, yeah, that might help me overcome my autistic inertia to go. Well, and you get your own booth. So, and I think mostly the other people will stay out of your booth. Mostly. So, oh. Oh. Marla says they have an open area where they cook on a long griddle. The workers are always interesting. And Pondfish says they have great bacon. And Marla says, oh yes, it's a life-ending experience if Waffle House closes. So, yeah, we don't get many hurricanes and we get very few tornadoes out in Oregon. So, I don't know. Seems like Portland ought to have a Waffle House, though. That's kind of a Waffle House kind of a town. I mean, we've got ample chaos, so it may just be one of those American sorts of things. I hope. It's hard to think of like the Belgians going to Waffle House. I think in Belgium they do waffles differently. That just makes me laugh to think about it. Thank you. Thank you for that, Marla. Marla says, I've been serenaded by the manager at one. He had a beautiful voice. Oh, wow. Can we get the sparkle on that one? That one is sparkly. Just can't decide what kind of color I want to work on here. Well, that one's kind of bright. Let's go with that one. Yeah, I'm kind of in that. I'm at 63. Like I feel like I'm too old to go hang out with the kids that are kind of horsing around, and I'm too young to go hang out with the old people that are hanging out in the, you know, uh, in the what do we have? We have some things. We have a few Denny's out here, and then we have a local chain around these parts called Elmer's. That's a bit of a breakfast all hours kind of place, and blue plate special, and uh, you come in at 4 o'clock, and the place is full of people with white, you know. The, don't be. I hope nobody's offended by this. But instead of the blue plate special, we tend to call it the blue hair special. So the ladies who have the white hair that's had a blue rinse put in it, and we like a half price dinner. I wish I was there. That's where just not quite. But they I know they were open on Thanksgiving in Elmer's nearby. And I was wanting. I thought I'll go down there because I've had their turkey dinners. Not the. They do turkey kind of in the fall on their menu, and then at the Thanksgiving time you can get like the full feast, the full works. And they open the restaurant up, and I just felt like I would sit there and cry the whole time, so I just couldn't get myself down there to do it. I definitely would do that if I just had a friend to go hang out with, and because they put on a nice spread, and the waitresses are all just old-fashioned sort of waitresses with really great service and cool attitude, and but like old-fashioned diner kind of cool, not like hipster sneering at you cool. Do we have Bob Evans? No, I don't think so. I would probably be okay once I got there because I know that there would probably be other people just on their own and, maybe even sharing tables. But I just couldn't summon myself up to do it this year. I'm kind of surprised. I think, I wonder, where did I get so programmed to be so attached to the holidays like this? But it's just culture, and it's all around us with the advertising and the merchandising. You can't go into a store, but they're not, stacks of things that influence you to, you can't ignore it. It's just everywhere. You can't go into a grocery store and everything from the stacks of holiday foods to the, Santa caps that the cashiers are wearing. So somewhere along the line, my family kind of just lost its grip on holidays. I think maybe part of the trick too is just to keep the traditions going. That, like, once you let go of them, I mean, I haven't figured out how to build some new ones. And I have it, like, various times. Like, I was in a relationship for a few years, and we built, we built some traditions, and we had celebrations with his family, and kind of getting cut loose from that. That was like, I lost the bonus sisters and brother, and the the bonus grandkids, and then I'm just in a phase now where I am untethered from all of that. Uh, but next year could be very different. I think there's probably just times in everybody's life where, yeah, you might be away at college and not be able to travel home for the holidays, or just might be, you might have been drafted and be deployed some other place in the world, and there's probably a lot of reasons why on any given year things might be a little bit less than ideal. And that doesn't mean that it's always going to be less than ideal forevermore. It's just this year, this time. And really, to just, even though it's Monday, I mean, I really don't know what Wednesday's going to be. Wednesday could turn out to be fantastic. Don't know. Yeah, Marla says they started around Labor Day in the stores. Yeah, it did seem like a lot this year to me. Like, this year, I remember thinking, good God, could we just focus on Halloween? Which would, that's such a phenomenon of the last 20 years or so, where Halloween's just been so huge. Because when you used to say the holidays, it meant Thanksgiving and Christmas, and now it's like Halloween is huge. And I know I was out, and there were like Santa Clauses and pumpkins, and I just made my head explode. So I don't really think we've fixed a time, have we, Maya, for Wednesday? We have to coordinate West Coast United States time with Norway time. So there's 9 hours difference between us to kind of get things coordinated, and I am not inclined to force myself into a schedule, as you guys may have noticed by the random, oh, she's live streaming now. Oh, it's 8 in the morning. Oh, it's 4 a.m. Oh, it's 4 in the afternoon. And in my mind, the internet exists in this sort of timeless space where I just don't like schedules. I never have, and I feel like I it would be punishing to lock myself into a every Saturday at 8 a.m. kind of a deal. I have had thoughts, as you guys have talked to me and said, when are you going to be live streaming next? Or, hey, it'd be good if you were on at the at the same damn time so I could figure out when to join your live streams. And I, I'm thinking about it. I don't know if I would say I'm working on it. I am sort of kind of try to make an appearance on Tuesdays and Sundays. I was kind of hitting on Friday nights, and then it's just not a good. It's not. I think people are just doing life stuff and doing other things. Friday nights are not a particularly. If I want to get 14 views, Friday night is a great, window. Other than that, it's not great. So. But I am working on a minimum of 2, if not. I think I would feel good with a solid 3 live streams a week, and 4 is not a problem. 5 is probably too many. Nobody wants to see this 5 times a week. Jessica Lynn, hello. And thank you. I know you've been trying to make a live stream, and I just want to throw that out to you and just say it's good to see you. I know you've been trying to get in here, so hi. Boy, we've had a couple of these where I'm just really liking the color. And I'm starting to feel a little better. Like I feel like my mind is it's not running around all over the place, all over the time of the week. It's not running back to the years when my mom was still alive. It's coming to this place where we are, and I have you people to talk to, and you have each other to talk to there in the chat. And that, I'm always harping about the positive aspects of a mindfulness practice, that it helps you to stop that dragging down the memories. That's, where depression lives. And it stops you from running ahead and getting ahead of yourself and future tripping. I'm right here now. The cat's laying on my feet. It's nice and warm. Got some folks to talk to. And it's not bad. It's pretty good. Irish Mart. Hello. Yeah. What is Mart? Is Mart short for Martha? That is not a good color. Let's find we'll do a little color therapy. We'll just find some that are pretty happy colors and we'll work with those. I like those colors a lot, but I feel like it needs another layer on it before it goes. Yeah, some of these I use just to see what happens with the paint. So they're a bit experimental. There's our Payne's Gray. That was a new one. One just beautiful the way it diffuses. That one's kind of lively. Let's just turn that one. Ah! Oh, that's lovely. Yeah, now there's a couple of you in here. You guys want an art show from what we were... I was working on pebbles earlier, finishing up a couple of paintings that I had been started on. And actually, take a look at these now. It's dried down a little bit. I had to rehab the manganese blue was flaking off, so I had to brush that out of there, and we still might have a little pigment coming off. But I think we might have fixed the problem. So everywhere I've got turquoise blue, I had to brush out the pigment and then try laying in some new paint. So I went in and turned this one into a new chunk of turquoise and used a little genuine amethyst paint to... Buddy, what? Are you singing? Hi. So used a little bit of that paint to make those a little bit more purple. So it's dried down, and I think we can call that one ready to come off the block. So there's that. Hi, Boo. And then we just finished a few pebbles in here. The big rocks were all done, but I just needed to put in some a little bit more details on just a few pebbles here and there. So I'll leave this until tomorrow to make sure that everything's fully dry, and then we'll be able to pull this one. It's a watercolor block, so it's glued all but there's a little section right here that's unglued where you can kind of get a palette knife under there, and then you can take the piece of paper off. So that's done if you're not familiar with that. You can either tape the paper down if it's a loose sheet, or else you can get the paper on a block where it's glued all the way around, so it keeps it from curling and distorting. So the original pigment that was down was a vintage manganese blue, and apparently the gum arabic had deteriorated, and so the pigment was flaking off. I brushed it out and I replaced it with a color called Sky Blue. It was from Marie's, which is a brand I tried but do not recommend. And it's basically, I'm getting the half pan out. It's a PB15, which is a phthalo blue, and this is the color. And the color name is Sky Blue. And I mixed that with a little bit of Desert Grey, which has yellow and Mars Black in it, to just add a little bit of, just a touch of yellow to just tone it from that color not found in nature back to a little bit of a greenish turquoise. And the matrix on the turquoise was just Desert Grey. Was that, I hope that was the... Yeah, you asked what type of turquoise did I use, and I answered by telling you what kind of paint I used to... So if that wasn't quite the let me know. I have been I have been lusting after a tube of Daniel Smith Sleeping Beauty Turquoise Genuine, and it's about $25 for the tube of it. And I know I would paint everything with it just because it's my favorite color, but yeah, me too. Pondfishes, I love turquoise, so you had to ask. It's my favorite. It is. Don't tell the other colors, but turquoise is my favorite. It really is. Yeah. They also make Kingman green turquoise as well. And, I pretty much want that too. We'll see. I'm saving money because it's out of stock until January. This is Maya's fault. She's a good influence, bad influence. But it's right in her name. She's not tricky about it. Yeah, so I think I got pretty close. We'll see. I'll think the paint is dry, and then it's still surprising me when I come back and it really dries down, which takes it some time. Especially these granulating watercolors. I think the traditional watercolors, they kind of look like what they're going to look like fairly quickly, but these granulating ones, man, you come back the next day, like after it's sat for 12 hours, and there's all sorts of textures and effects that I'm starting to be able to see the ghost of it now because I've been working with the paints for a few weeks. But I'm still just delighted and charmed by what develops. I don't know that we've had tremendous innovations in watercolor media like we have in the last few years. It's like it's just one of those times where there's just been this quantum leap in what we've got available. Yeah, no, I appreciate the question. You just throw those at me anytime. So, yesterday I swatched a whole handful of the Daniel Smith Primatech colors that are made from everything from garnets to amethyst to hematite. What else do we have on here? Oh, tons of cool things. And I was taken by the jadeite genuine, that deep green color, just beautiful. So that's on the list. And then the card included a whole assortment of quinacridone, everything from pink to coral, quinacridone lilac. Yeah, there's the rabbit hole for Maya. I think the quinacridone lilac is maybe my favorite out of that group. And we were talking the other day, and I know I had said, "Oh, I think I have to order coral," and after seeing it on a swatch, I was like, "Yeah, not so much." It looked like that first aid stuff that my mom used to put on my knee, my grandma back back in the way back. And I thought it was going to be like a very beautiful floral color, but it just looked like, first aid. It was not good. But the quinacridone lilac just did all kinds of surprising things. And I expected it to be more of a blue purple, but it was actually sort of a hot pink. That okay, that's probably enough nerding out on paints that are not right in front of us right now. I get the biggest kick. I don't know if you guys ever use the Ask AI that attaches to some of these videos, but when it shows up, I ask it questions. I always ask it. It says, "Do you want me to summarize the video?" Yeah, sure. Let me see what you think of that. And I find it pretty entertaining. I have tried a few times asking it. So, especially when I was first starting this, I was like, what do I need? How can I improve this YouTube thing? How can I do a better job for you guys? And so I asked the AI, what can Janelle do better in her videos? And it's like, it's like, she needs to improve her lighting. It's like, well, the lighting, it is what it is. Until summer comes. Yeah, until summer comes, this is the lighting we get. And then so I just jerk the AI around. I'm that person. I'm like, oh, I like to ask it absurd questions, and it's good for 20 minutes if you're. I figure we better get to know our AI overlords because they're going to be in charge of us soon enough. Pondfish says, I have jadeite genuine. It's beautiful. I did a painting recently with lots of it. Yeah. Uh, that color that color made me happy. I wish I had the big tube of it. So, yeah. Oh, you can ask it yeah, what could I do better? What did I do well? What would make this video perform better in the algorithm? Oh, you can ask it, and it's kind of stupid. It'll answer whatever question you ask it. And if you ask it something and it'll say, I don't know the answer to that question, just reword it or tell it. I'll sometimes go, I need you to answer the question. And it'll go, I'll try harder. I mean, it's it's a trip. Yeah, because I mean, the algorithm is mysterious AF, right? So if the computer, which seems to be connected somehow into the algorithm, will talk to me, I just thought, oh, well, I will, I'm going to ask it every question I can think of. So, yeah. I'll ask it, what would get this video pushed to the front page of YouTube? And sometimes, like, I might be. I'm at least going to give it a hard time. It seems to give me a hard time, so. You guys know you come here because it's, because I'm a quirky artist. So. Dan. So, Dan, I was just thinking about you. I was talking to the AI over on Dan's channel. You guys all, I'm just, I'm just gonna put it out there. I hope it's not embarrassing for you, but Dan had a video stream on Saturday morning, and Dan pulled in not 60, not 600, not 1600, 16,000 views. And well done, Dan. That was epic. And I was quite thrilled to see that happen. And every once in a while, you hit the timing. You find that moment where there's a bunch of people all over the world. Maybe a game just ended, and everybody's come to you. I don't know what it is, where you will just walk in on a live stream like that. And I hit one of those. I think mine went about 1,200 on election night. So how to do it again, I have no idea. I hope that you can do it again. I hope maybe what you're doing in the time you're routinely doing it, maybe you'll do it again next Saturday. I don't know. I hope so. But I was quizzing the AI about that. So during Dan's live stream, he got messages from YouTube telling him that he was throttled out of having more viewers, which I think is, just if the AI is listening, I think that's bullshit. But if we had somebody who was live streaming and they were new here and they were doing things that were shady and against the terms of service, I guess we would not want them to have an ungated access to every viewer on YouTube. So I can understand sort of the system of why they do it. What I learned from talking to the AI and doing a little digging was that it has to do with putting pressure, that when streams hit big like that, it taxes the servers. It's not anything that was done. It wasn't actually related to your modest viewer subscribers number, because you're a new channel, so you have an appropriate, or you have a modest number of subscribers. I'm not going to call it small or anything like that. I think YouTube told you that it was because of your subscriber level, and that was why you were being throttled. I think it has more to do with YouTube just not wanting to devote servers to new channels. I don't feel like it was anything you were doing at all. I think YouTube did you dirty there, and I hope that they... Yeah, the only thing I think you might have been able to do was just to ask people, hey, if you're out there watching, subscribe. Please subscribe. And hit that a little bit, because if you would have picked up... I mean, I don't know if you're cranking through 16,000 views, I don't know what you can expect to pick up in subscribers, but you probably could have grabbed a few. And whether or not YouTube would be responsive to those subscribers coming in right then and then blowing open the gate for you, I don't know. My take on it is that YouTube doesn't. That it kind of is set in its ways, and then when you try to talk to anybody about it, there's nobody to talk to, and it kind of is what it is, take it or leave it. So... yeah, it's definitely a YouTube flow problem. It didn't have anything to do with the channel, and they should have let you have another 16,000. That's what I think. Anyway, I couldn't be more thrilled that is happening, and I am really glad that you have just been brave and just gone, oh, I'm going to start doing it. I'm just going to launch on it. And that it's gone so well. It is live streaming on YouTube is a bit like, I don't know, getting on a rodeo horse or something. It's very unpredictable. It's wild. It feels like I'm gonna, get tossed off in the next 8 seconds, and it's also a heck of a lot of fun. So anyway, hi Dan, welcome in. I know that a lot of people in my chat, like, we love having you here, and I think I will speak for everybody and just say we're just so thrilled for you to have that happen. Very, very cool. Oh gosh, Marla. Marla says it sounds like ice fishing sometimes or fly fishing. And I was just thinking, I caught a 39-pound salmon one time. And I was always like, I like fishing. It's not something I go, like, I don't own my own fishing rod, but I'm a gal. So if there's a fella who says, like, you want to go fishing? I'll go. Yeah, I don't have to own my own rod because guys sometimes ask me to go fishing. Or like my dad would take me fishing. And I only get invited to go fishing once because I am ridiculously lucky at catching fish. And one time I went fishing with somebody and I caught a 39-pound salmon. And I couldn't tell you how I did it. I don't know how that happened. And I was just, had this fish I couldn't pick it up, right? To have somebody help me hold it to take the picture. It was fantastic. It was we barbecued that sucker and it was delicious. And I don't know. It just seems like YouTube is a little bit like catching a 39-pound salmon. So, and I look up and there's Marla saying it sounds like ice fishing or fly fishing. Yeah. Yeah. Alrighty. So you guys are like, yeah. And somebody's code like, YouTube is rude. Yes. Server stress sounds like a viable answer. Mm-hmm. And Dad says, folks here are one of the only reasons I started. So thank you for collecting these wonderful people. Well, you're welcome. Also, it's a heck of a lot of fun to watch you do stuff. I had fun watching that poll. Who'd think? I still have to go back and watch. Did you get you did go with the purple poplar for the end caps that covered the screws, right? I don't know what it is, Marla. Like, I can catch them off a pier, I can catch them off the edge of a lake, I can catch them off a jetty, I can catch them scuba diving, spear fishing. Um, there's just something about casting that just, I don't know. But I don't fish enough to say that, hey, I'm a totally lucky, you should always take me because I'll limit out. It's just, anyway. I should stop talking so that I might hope to get invited fishing yet again. Maya! Oh, Maya says, I think I'm better at fishing than YouTubing, ocean fishing. I even had my own boat at one point. That's very cool. My family had a boat. I didn't have a boat. But I scuba dived. And I've been spearfishing. I've been spearfishing off the Oregon coast and then also up in the San Juan Islands in Washington State. And oh man, you think fresh caught fish is good. Boy, you come up with a bag full of fish, hand it up to the dive master who hands it up to the cook on the boat. Get out of your gear, and then go eat the fish. Um, I didn't even know fish could taste that good. And I'm really excited because Dan's gonna talk Dan into making a project for me. So yeah. Well, as long as you don't get mad at me for catching my fish, that's the only thing. And here's the other thing. I'll catch them. I'll fillet them. I can take salmon off the fish without. I don't get them. That part is that part is uh, I might be able to do it, but then I would not be able to eat the fish. So I kind of think, like, ethically, I'm like, if you're gonna take wildlife, you're gonna take something and you're gonna eat it, you should be willing to deal with it. And I'm not quite willing to deal with it, but so far I've fished with gentlemen who were willing to clean the fish. Or, yeah, with salmon you don't have to. If you just take the fillets off the fish. My brain just went, it went 15 sparkling directions there in the last 10 minutes. Here we had it all corralled back in. It's off again. That's okay. I don't mind it so much if it's off, out sparkling out, and I'm laughing about it. It's when it's going 15 directions and they're all kind of mopey and morose. That's more of a problem. How do we get off to fishing? I don't know. That we'd have better luck fishing than we do on trying to figure out what the hell YouTube is up to. Anyway, so if you run across a video, I think that's where I kind of ran my train right off the tracks. But if you run across a video that's got ask attached to it, it doesn't seem to do it on all of them. We've got to get the engagement up with the chat and a lot of people rolling through. And when we do that, we get the transcript processed faster and we get the chat processed a little bit more quickly. And then it also will it'll put the AI on to tell us about the video. And anyway, it was just fun. So I had it. I've asked it, hey, write a description for this video, and it'll give me a paragraph. And I have taken things from that from time to time. I'll go, oh, that's a good point. Like I didn't remember doing that because I usually come to the end of the video and then I'll write a description to kind of talk about what art materials or what sorts of things we did. But sometimes the AI will say, you know, Janelle encouraged everybody to do art and this blah blah blah, and I'm like, okay, well that's pretty good. So yeah, I mean it's it's free. So I'm gonna take a look at the chat here. Dan says he took me fishing, and I might get bored waiting for him to catch your limit long after you're done. Yeah, we covered that. If I'm out in nature, I can just stand and look at a leaf or look at rocks or look at them. Like I'm really happy if I'm kind of out someplace. So exactly, Maya says I can be picking pebbles while waiting for Dan to finish getting his limit. I will. Yeah, one of these days. I haven't been out and about on my I like to take a road trip once a week, and I had thought about that, but I'm still kind of coping with the recovery from the cardiac procedure I had. And I haven't told you guys this. I saw the cardiologist last week, and I was kind of concerned that they were going to kick me back in for another procedure, and we're not going to do that, so that's good news. And I think it's also this other part of it is probably good news as well, and that is that I'm getting referred back for another round of cardiac rehab, where I go down to the hospital and they hook me up to a heart monitor, and then I'm on a treadmill for 30 minutes. And it's scary because I've got the chest pain going, but because they've got me on a monitor, they can see what my heart is doing, and they come and they stop me before I have a heart attack or anything bad happens. So it's a chance to kind of get back into some physical shape, and we'll see if... I mean, the other times I've been through cardiac rehab after procedures, I have been able to get back to where I was able to be on a treadmill for 30 minutes. And that's pretty good. Like with that, you can go do lots of things. So we're going to try to do that. And I think that'll probably start in, I'm hoping in January, but maybe not until February. And once I get through that, there will be some road trips. That's a little bit wild, huh? Thank you, Marla. Oh, no, pondfish. No, we just do... Golly. Poor pondfish. Yeah, it's been such a weird year. Good grief. It is kind of remarkable what they can do in the with the cardiology stuff. So I'm going to run this one a little bit here. I've switched from the black pens to sepia, which is a kind of a dark neutral brown, and see, I don't think I've got much ink. I think we went through this the other day with the threes. Oh, there's some. I don't want to get halfway through this and run out of ink, so we're going to jump up. I know the 5 is nice and... Yep, there we go. So I'm just going to throw an outline around these little guys, and then I'm going to sketch in some, or outline some other spaces using the next size down, or, well, this is a 3. No, this is a 5, and I've got an 01, so it's actually a couple steps down. But I'll make some little pebbles to fill in those spaces, and then I'll put a wash and drop in some colors to detail those other little shapes. So I've really missed the, I call them a Wednesday wander, where I would just pack a lunch in a little cooler and then go someplace, usually a little town. There's just a ton of places I can drive to from where I'm at, or go over to the beach and always find a park, always find some place to take a hike, whether it's along the beach or up hunting for waterfalls, anything like that. And I don't know if you guys have had a chance to see any of the shorts on my channel, but there's a couple on there from Yaquina Head over at Newport. It's just kind of smack. If you're looking at Oregon, it's kind of maybe a little bit north of middle of the state, and it's a national scenic area. It's just so beautiful. We've reserved it as a national park. And one of my shorts is Actually, I think there's two of them there that are just one taken from the bluff and another one down on Cobble Beach where I've got a full of rocks. So, no, I know that will be a surprise. So those shorts seem to hit pretty well, and so I think people enjoyed them, and I would like to be able to bring a few more of those to you guys in 2025. I think it's a lot of fun to go out to those places, and it's just a little minute of some nature to just, I don't know, give you a little bit of a glimpse of what goes on out here in the Pacific Northwest, and to hopefully be a couple minutes of just something that is refreshing and kind of fun to watch. I'm trying to go a little bit more loosely on this one to make some spaces around the rock. I don't always want to just exactly keep those contours. I think it livens up a drawing sometimes to have a little bit of wobble in it. Anyway, I don't think I'm going to do any like long term, like walking along with a gimbal talking about. I'm not going to do any of that kind of stuff. That's not what I do. But just more things that could be turned into shorts. And now we can do shorts of 3 minutes. So that's kind of, I kind of like that format. I was sort of started to do a few shorts and then just kept feeling like, oh, I could use another 30 seconds for this. So I was always just struggling to edit it down within the shorts time constraint. So I think that new 3-minute format's going to be something that's going to work well. Dan says, random town drives. He does that, usually with the intention of finding food at a random little restaurant, though. Well, see, I take one meal with me, and if I'm being really cheap, I eat lunch out, and then I eat the sandwich for my dinner, because lunch is usually cheaper than dinner. But it's nice to like take a hike and come back into the small town that's near the trailhead and find something that is not a chain or something that like well, sometimes the A&W, we have A&Ws out here, and those are franchised and they run them more like a mom and pop kind of a thing. But that's part of it, and I'll always take $50 in my pocket, and that's my entertainment. I have all the stuff I need except for art supplies. I need more art supplies. But there's not much I need to buy. But I do like to be entertained, and I do have an entertainment budget. And so that's, I put $50 in my pocket and I'll spend it at the small businesses. And I started doing that in 2020. And some of the time, I do. There are a couple of. Well, there's a little town up near Portland called McMinnville, out that direction, and they have a couple of things, and I've been there more than once because they have. It's a college town, and they've got a fantastic art supply store with really good prices, and they have a pie company that makes the best Marionberry pie that I've ever had in my life. So they've got pie and art supplies. So you know I'm going back there. And then there's a short on my channel of this incredible golden scale mushroom growing out of the side of a tree. That was a park that was in McMinnville. So I will probably, go back there again. But the town that I grew up in, it seemed like it was, a small town that has since become a very, very large town. And there's something really pleasurable about spending a day in a small town. Just downtown, you can walk around and go check out the little stores. And one of my favorite things to walk around in is the local hardware store. There's almost always something interesting or someone interesting in a hardware store. And it is just an absolute pleasure of being a person who does not have to go to work every day, is to be able to go and spend a weekday just doing that. So yeah, I think it'll be good to do that, and I think it'll be fun to share some of that stuff. So we'll have a trail cam video, so I'd love to, trail cam video. Not just me. Nothing like a big bear nose snuffling right up at the camera. It's fantastic. And I live in, yeah, there's so much. And I grew up, my family was kind of, my grandfather was a farmer. And so we did, we didn't grow up rich. And as a kid, our way of recreating, my parents would just pile us in the car and we'd camp. I grew up camping and backpacking, and backpacked a lot of segments of the Pacific Coast Trail through Oregon, and have camped at all over on the coast and Central Oregon, the mountains, and kind of fell out of that in my young adulthood and then came back to it. But I had discovered the Columbia River Gorge as a recreational area. I didn't discover it. It's been there for quite some time, but I had not recreated in it until a few years ago, and then started to hike the various waterfall trails. And I just can't believe I've lived all my life and then didn't recreate in the Columbia River Gorge, which is a divider between Washington and Oregon State, and just incredible that. So Dan says random town drives. He does that, and he usually with the intention of, I read this before, but yeah, I think it bears reading again. He likes to find food at random little restaurants, and tries to avoid chains. And he found a town in West Virginia that did glass blowing and made jams and jellies. Best blueberry jam I've ever had. Oh, West Virginia is... there's a lot of glassworks companies in that part of the country. Some collectible marbles and depression glass that came out of West Virginia. So tons of cool stuff to find there. Yeah, I'm sure it won't be a surprise to any of you that I have jars of marbles sitting there beside the jars of pebbles all over the place. I should think in your part of the country down there'd be a lot of cool old settlements to go poke around in. And We do have quite a few junk stores and antique stores out here, but because it's Oregon, right, we don't have, you know, the population wasn't out here, so we don't have really significantly old antiques in the antique stores. Everything's maybe, you know, if you find something from the 1870s or later, you know. So Dan says he'd never seen glass blowing in person before, and it was a sight to see. The gentleman even made me some tree ornaments. It's pretty magical. I had a chance to do a semester abroad when I was in law school, and I bought a rail pass, and every time I was done with class, I would just dash to the train station and get on a train and go wherever I could go. And one of the weekends that I got away, I went to Venice, Italy. Because why wouldn't you, right? And there was availability on the train, and so that's where I went. And glass blowing, Italian glass blowing in some of the little islands that are near Venice, Murano and Burano, have glass factories, and you can take tours and you can see. You can't see very much of the glass blowing itself. You see museum level displays in the galleries that are at the factories. They really guard the trade secrets, so you don't get to see somebody, you know, standing in front of the furnace and putting together the Manganese, the little designs that are in the glass canes. I would you basically have to kind of be sworn to secrecy and be apprenticed for or attached to that profession for life before they let you get back and actually see what's going on. But just even to see the work and the little bits, it was I don't know, it's like kind of like watching a magician, but way better. And it was one of the coolest places I've ever been. So one thing we don't think about because we're not there, and especially in America, we go everywhere. Well, and Dan, you know, cars, right? And in Venice, they don't have cars. They have canals, so everybody moves either on, like, there's quite a few Vespas and bikes, but even the ambulance is a boat. So you hear the sounds of the water kind of slapping up against the brick, and you hear the diesel chug, 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 chug of the taxis, the water taxis. And if you want to go from one end of Venice to the other by public transport, you get on a water ferry. So it's a pretty populous city, but all of the sounds are human and marine. There's no honking and peeling out and car door slamming or any of those kinds of things. And it's a really amazing place to go to experience. So I've never had a chance to really travel like that since, and I'm glad I was able to. And if you ever get a chance in life to go travel, just say yes. Go do it. Even if it's just a day trip an hour away from where you live. Go travel and explore and see what else is out there. Yeah, it was uh it was one of the weekends where I like had to be back to go to classes and because studying what I was studying, you couldn't afford to miss even one lecture, so we just had to rush back and get back to the work, but I just worked my butt off getting my studying done in the time of in the morning before class or after class so that I wasn't stuck with a whole stack of homework to do on the weekend. And boy, I worked my tail off that summer. I don't think I worked harder, academically speaking, than I did that. Work hard, play hard, right? There's an old movie, but it's Katharine Hepburn, let's see, called Summertime, that's set in Venice, and um, it really captures like what it was like to walk around Venice at night. And um, I know the last time I watched it, it was like, yeah, that's what it was like. Like it was the same style of boats and that same, um, it's a bit dated, the movie, but the people that were around, locals, like they were dressed nicely and, very well groomed and wonderful restaurants. And we actually ate at Harry's Cipriani's and didn't realize like big deal. We just kind of went, oh, this looks nice. Let's have lunch here, and we managed to get a table and have a Bellini, and I don't know. It just I think that movie was really it was like that. A lot of it was like that. Yeah. Oh, the architecture in Venice is like the other kind of interesting thing about Venice is that because of the rising water and because the materials are in water and they sink, and you don't have a garage, but down below there would be doors that open, and that's where you would keep your boat. And so, as the waters have risen, the buildings have been built up another story. And so it's sort of evolving in this strange upward way, but it's very beautiful. And um, the steps that they go to try to deal with just the hydraulics of the water and living kind of where you're just perched out in the ocean is pretty fascinating. Yeah. Yes. Marla says, when we were younger, it didn't seem that hard. Well, and for a period of time, you can buckle down and you can do anything, you know. You can get through basic training in the military. You can get through a tough educational program. It's when you find yourself in a profession that just is demanding that level of you all the time that it just physically your body it does get a bit hard to sustain. So, but we can do remarkable things for particularly when it's sort of in a limited time span. Yeah, I when I studied art history, I really especially loved the anything, Italian and Michelangelo's sculptures and Botticelli's paintings. So I was mostly seeking out art galleries Like, I went to Berlin because I knew that they had the bust of Nefertiti, which is from Egypt, and lots of artifacts from Egypt. I wanted to see those, and went to Amsterdam because there's a Van Gogh museum, and Florence has the carving of David by Michelangelo. And that should have told me something. I was there to study law, but all of my recreation was to go see art. Yeah. Did I go into law? Yeah, I did. I told that story on the live stream last night of kind of my foray into it. I failed to consider that I would be working with lawyers. I know, it sounds dumb. It was a little dumb. And while I was in law school, I was like, God, these people are real assholes. I don't know. I just kind of, there were about, I don't know, a handful of people, two or three people that I would, have lunch with or study with or hang out with that weren't complete and total jerks. But for the most part, you just would find out pretty quickly that somebody was just being nice to you because they wanted your study notes, or you just, they're everything you think and worse. And it just, I guess I just didn't really consider that I would be working with lawyers who were like the people I'd gone to law school with, plus 10 or 20 more years of being lawyers. And that was tough enough, but probably the largest obstacle was when I was in law school, there were about 40% of the class were female. But in the profession, less than 10% of the lawyers were female. So I went to work in offices where I looked like a legal assistant or a legal secretary, and I got treated like I was a legal secretary. And I remember, this one kind of conflict I had when I was working in the trial practice, and the boss came down and he dropped a stack of stuff on his desk, and he said, I need photocopies of these, and we need them for trial in 2 days. And I was an associate lawyer. I got paid by the billables. You only had billables if you were doing work directly for a client. I didn't get paid to make photocopies. And I was working, 75 hours a week easily. And just, he'd get my time card and he would just cross through and he'd say, that would have taken me 5 minutes. That you don't get to bill 45 minutes for that. You don't get to bill 45 minutes for this. You don't, and he would just decimate my time card, and he'd pay me for what he had actually taken a pen to my time card, which is illegal in the state in which I live. You can sit an employee down and ask them to modify their time card, but you cannot modify a time card. And also, you have to pay people for the hours they work. So that is the kind of stuff that would be done by a legal assistant, probably not even a legal secretary. And he walks down the hall to a law clerk who was a first-year law student working after school, and he would give him briefs. Now, if I was writing briefs, I could get paid. I'm going to show that message because that is exactly... I don't know why it takes YouTube so long to do this. I tell it to show the message, and it's like, I don't want to show the message. He was a cheating, scamming jerk. Yep. Yeah, so it was really hard. Like, I looked like a legal secretary, and I got treated like one. I resolved that by taking the box of stuff down to the local copy shop where they had a secure copying area that was literally walled off from the rest of the copy shop, and they would take in one job at a time, one employee at a time on the job, so that it was still kept confidential. And I said, can you make me 3 collated copies of this? And they went, sure. When will it be ready? Couple hours. and went down, picked it up, took it in, set it on my boss's desk, and he was not happy. And I mean, I just refused to be treated like I was secretarial and to do it for no pay. And it was just that kind of bullshit all the time, along with, the client that I told you about last night who launched himself into the bed of his own pickup truck. It's just that kind of nonsense. So I was battling that. It was a real uphill battle, and then I got sick and I got misdiagnosed, and the misdiagnosis just really made me much sicker to the point I wasn't able to work. And while I was kind of trying to get my health back and get my feet back under me and get back to work, my family bought the flower shop, and then it was just like there was work to do there. So I wasn't making money as a lawyer. I was having a miserable time, and I could do more business work, running a small business. So I made that transition and went and did that. But yeah, I know it's really hard to be sympathetic to people who are lawyers, but it is a miserable profession to find oneself in, and especially if one is, really more cut out to be an artist or somebody who is a creative person. And just in part, I mean, you think you could just get it down to lawyers' purpose in most anything that they're involved in is to work as a giant parking brake. They just put the brake on what is going on. That's the job, to outline the risks and to tell you not to do stuff. Whereas, maybe working as a florist is all about saying yes. It's all about saying, yeah, we'll make it better. We'll help you fix it. We'll help you apologize to your wife when you've messed up, or we'll help you celebrate the birth of a baby or your wedding. So I will say that there was not a minute I've ever missed being in the legal profession, just because it was miserable. I didn't get paid, and I got treated really badly. And I worked my ass off to get through there. I put myself through law school. I had a scholarship, and it's not easy. It's one of the more difficult things I've ever done. But there you go. Any questions? Dan says the flower shop in his town saves his hide constantly. We actually had cards on the rack that were a picture of a man who was kind of like he was coming out of there was in a doghouse, and he kind of had his elbows down and his chin in his hands, and it was like the fellow was in the doghouse. Yeah. I had customers who would come in, and I would take one look at them. They were people I knew fairly well, and I would say, "Oh, are you in half dozen trouble? Or are you in a dozen roses kind of trouble?" And my customers would say, "Oh, I need a dozen." I need a dozen, and I need an anniversary card with that, because do you think you might need a box of chocolates too? Because yeah, I might need a box of chocolates. And I would love it. Like the next week when the wife would come in and say, "Oh, you guys did such a nice job. My husband did. I loved the roses, and I loved the chocolates." And we would say, "Yeah, he is one of our favorite customers. He knows where to turn to for help when things have gotten a little out of his calendar." I don't know. Law school, they teach you how to think about things in law school. They don't really teach you how to lawyer. And they really don't prepare you for what it's like to go into the profession, because there's so many different fields of law, and it's very different. Criminal law from civil law, from real estate or wills or family law. You kind of have to learn that on the job, and we don't really have a formal apprenticeship program, so when you don't have things formalized, that's an area where someone who's sharp dealing or unscrupulous can take advantage. And it's sort of known, it's expected. Like, we do know that when we're in law school, that being an associate attorney is going to be a trial by fire, and it's going to be a tough time in your career. But um, it's the sort of arrangement that's just so able to be abused by people who are in power. And I mean, I'll ask you guys, who's going to have sympathy for the young lawyer? Who has sympathy for any lawyer? We just culturally don't do that in America. I've been other places. The summer that I was studying abroad, I was in places like Switzerland, where I think there's quite a lot of respect for the profession, but it operates very differently than they don't take cases on contingency, and they don't chase ambulances or do some of the horrible things that American attorneys do. So, yeah. Oh, Maya. No, let's see. Oh, okay, so it wasn't just me. Dan says, when I walk in there, the wonderful lady behind the counter will ask, trouble or gift? And make me something wonderful depending on the answer. Yeah. See, you're not alone in that. Um, yeah, we've probably helped more marriages than lawyers ever have as florists. I think it's an awesome thing that the flower shop knows exactly the kinds of flowers that she likes. Dan K says it's that his local flower shop knows what kinds of flowers Mrs. K likes. Maya's bringing in the puns. I could have made a law and flower shop and called it the flower shop. Yeah. Yeah, especially because I was a lawyer in the '90s. So Marla's saying, especially in the years I came through, yeah, it was tough. I hope it's a better. Well, I hope it's a better place for, especially for women lawyers. I hope that we have come up and put up with that bullshit and just gone, yeah, we're going to have our own firms and we're going to do it differently. I suspect that is a hope and not a reality. Just because, yeah, I mean, you don't come out of law school being soft and fuzzy. You just don't. Uh, it it bends your brain in ways so that you just don't ever look at anything in an innocent way again. Like it's just something simple like I'll be in a grocery store in the produce section and I'll see a squashed grape or two on the floor, and like to tell you the truth, I will, if they've got paper towels, I will pick it up. But what my brain tells me is that is a potential lawsuit for that store, and that where is the produce guy? The produce person should be out here cleaning this up. They should have seen this. Why is there not a sign in front of this? Because if somebody falls and slips on this piece of squashed produce, they're going to be liable for all of the injuries. And then for the the previous 75 trips to the chiropractor for the previous lawsuit that the person who slips and falls on the squashed grape. Like, you just don't walk through and just go get a bunch of bananas anymore. It my brain is always calculating, who's got liability, and um, I've had a few people over the years that say, "Yeah, I want to go to law school. Tell me all about it." And I'll say, "You don't. First of all, my advice is don't go to law school." And one of them was my cousin, and he promptly went to law school. And you know what he does for a living? He's a lawyer. Do you know how much he likes it? Not at all. So I've switched it up a little bit. I now I'll say things like, if you love working 75 hours a week and getting paid for 20, this is going to be perfect for you. You're going to be right at home. If you don't like leaving an office until dark every night all summer long, it's going to be terrific. Going to be wonderful. You want to work with a bunch of people who will steal your client at the first opportunity they get? Oh, gonna be right at home. Hmm. Oh, that's so interesting. Oh. Oh. Marla said she did sign language interpreting for 17 years and real estate for 20 plus. When people ask you if you miss it, she says, not a bit. Yeah, real estate strikes me as the kind of thing that you could have colleagues that were kind of trying to swipe your commission. I always wondered, like, if you're a good real estate agent, how many houses a year are you um, getting a commission on? Like, how many houses do you move a year? And it just seems like if you just didn't have the knack for it, it seems like it would be a really tough profession. Oh, I think that last one I didn't bring it up. As soon as I looked at the number, my brain just went. So you'd have to sell or buy or sell 60 houses a year to make a living? Is that what that means, that answer? That's a lot. That's a house a week, more than a house a week. What an interesting combination of things. Although, now where did you do interpreting? Because I would have seen interpreters at like at court and hearings and stuff like that. Ah, I really like this one. Something about the colors and this is sort of a delicacy to the paint in this one that I'm really, really digging. Yeah, I'm doing all kinds of stuff. I've been working since I was 12. I was working, on the family farm and then in agriculture because they would just load up busloads of kids and we would pick the strawberries. So I did that. I've done all kinds of things and kept myself busy every summer, uh, earning money for college. And um, after I became disabled, I worked as a plot doctor, worked editing uh, fiction for authors. Um, and just I think almost everything I did was more interesting than lawyering. But there's a lot of, we've got it in TV shows and we've got a lot of, um, I just got mesmerized by one of the blanks. I used one of those, these areas right here are absolutely sparkly as can be. I used one of those Primatech paints in it, and you couldn't really see it at first, but as it's dried down, it's just got something crazy going on there. The one thing I never really did, I was always working. Worked in a sign shop too. As I've never been a housewife and just done that thing. Here's another sparkly one. So I think of the back to the art supplies, I think of the Daniel Smith paints as just being sort of, true artist quality paints, but there's a lot of their interference and the duochrome lines are I don't even not even sure of a word, but they're not my grandmother's watercolor paints, that's for sure. Alrighty, folks. Yeah. This one. I think we'll save these for later. I'm looking up here. I see we've been going for 3.5 hours. I don't feel so badly about doing that in the middle of the night because I know that there's a lot of room to stream and to hang out. But we have stretched this out, but I think it's a time to call it a night and go and bribe the cat with a little bit of cat food. So thank you for the subscriptions. I really appreciate it. It helps drive the engagement. Any shares, any kind of comments, and the chat. Really, really appreciate that so much. And thanks everybody for hanging out. And I hope you guys are cheered up a little bit. I know I was just feeling pretty down at the beginning of this, and just spending some time talking and spending some time doing some art and revisiting some of those happier memories has it's really cheered me up a bit. So I hope it's uplifted your spirits as well. And hang in there these next few days. They'll be hectic, they'll be busy, or they'll be unnaturally quiet. There'll be something that's a little bit of a challenge to roll with. Keep in mind, more daylight each day. It's getting brighter. We'll get through it. And I'll again remind you, I'm going to be live streaming on Wednesday, so there'll be a break. And don't worry about catching it live. If you've got stuff going on, you make those happy memories. It'll be there in the live stream for you to hit it on rewatch, replay like, and just take time for yourself. Keep your act together. Be nice, and don't forget to feed your own cats. We'll see you next time. I say thank you to Maya. She's always here with us. And I appreciate you so much. We'll see you on the next one.